Just a brutally stinging loss to cap off what would have been a great road trip. It turns into just an okay one with a really bad taste in their mouth coming home and no days off. Got to recover quick.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there on video if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And coming up on today's show, we have the great misfortune of getting into this brutal ending to what otherwise was a strong trip for the San Francisco Giants. Long, brutal trip through New York to face the Yankees, where they take 2 out of 3. Philadelphia to face a good Phillies team, where they split in a 4-game series. And then Anaheim, a place where you should be able to win that series and just cap off what would have been a 6-4 road trip if they could have just closed off a 4-1 lead in the 9th inning. But Ryan Walker comes in. He just didn't have it from the start. I will point out that he had Mike Trout struck out to start the inning. It was a 3-2 slider, and it caught the top of the zone. It was framed fine. It was not like stabbed at or anything by Sam Huff, the catcher, but called a ball by Laz Diaz, who's kind of notoriously not the best and most accurate umpire. Called a ball. It's like it went both ways in the game, but if you look at the umpire scorecards, it does say that objectively it doesn't factor in like what happened next. It just says like how did the calls change the expected outcomes of the game, and it was about a run for the Angels. And I tweeted out this morning right before starting this show that I think if that pitch is called correctly, then the Giants win the game. A 3-2 count to start the inning, and it's called a ball when it was in the strike zone to Mike Trout. It just sets the whole tone for the entire inning. And 1 out, striking out Trout can really calm you down as a closer, and instead it's pressure right away. So anyway, I'm not blaming the umpire, because then after Trout reached on the walk, the Angels just continued to rally. I mean, Ryan Walker could barely get anybody out. He gave up a single to Jorge Soler. He struck out the next batter, and then Logan Webb hit a single to left, and then he drilled Zach Neto in the abdomen, which looked extremely painful, and then Joe Adell hit a 3-run double. So, it's not like Ryan Walker had his best stuff, and he had no command of the slider. The big takeaway though, is that it's just a stinging loss. There's no doubt about it. When you've got that one kind of in the bank in your mind as a fan, and I think as a player, given what we've seen from Ryan Walker, I do believe I kind of like went media dark after this game because it was that stinging of a loss. But I saw somebody say, and I think it's true, it's the first blown save of Ryan Walker's career. So one of the key points is that this does happen. Even the best, they go out there and kind of brutally blow it in the late innings. And think about the fact that the Giants have done this to teams a couple of times this year. They had the Reds were 1 out away on opening day from finishing off the Giants, and Patrick Bailey tied the game with a single. And then Wilmer Flores hit a home run, and the Giants went ahead, and they won the game. And then in San Francisco against the Mariners in the home opener, the Giants were down to their last out, and Willy Adames hit a 2-run single to win the game. So the Giants have done this a couple of times. This is a little different. They weren't 1 out away at any point. Ryan Walker did only get the 1 out in the inning, but still a 3-run lead, and to give up 4, and it's the Angels. It's a team that I know they're playing okay right now, but at the end of the year, the Angels will probably be 10, 20 games under 500, and the Giants hope to be significantly better than that, and we don't know, but probably around 500 at worst would be my guess at this point, especially after the hot start. So it just stings. It stings, but like I said, there's no time to dwell on it, and maybe that's a good thing, actually, because and they're obviously going to be tired after 10 games on the road. It feels like an eternity. I've traveled, even just traveling on a trip like this to be a fan is exhausting. And you come home and you can't believe these guys have been playing out there the whole time. And then not only that, they come home and, you may see on YouTube, I'm in a hotel. I'm not traveling with the Giants though right now. But you come home from a vacation to watch the Giants, and then you're like, I'm exhausted. But then they have to go out there and play the Brewers tonight, no days off. They're in this stretch, I think it's 17 or 18 days in a row, starting with that game against the Yankees in New York, where they don't have a day off. So they've got the Brewers coming in for 4 tonight, and the Brewers just whooped on the A's yesterday. So the Brewers are coming in with a lot of confidence. They won their game 14-1 over the A's. So it's a 4-game series against a Brewers team that always manages to be solid at the very least, it seems. And then after that, you've got the Texas Rangers coming into town, and the Rangers are in first place in their division at 13-9. But worth pointing out, the Rangers do have a negative 14 run differential. They've only scored 67 runs, have the Rangers, whereas the Giants have scored 111. So you may think, the Giants' offense has been scuffling. Giants have scored 111 runs. The Rangers have 67, almost half as many runs. Rangers have allowed 81. Giants have allowed 81. So that just goes to show you the Rangers somehow are 13-9 and the Giants are 14-8 despite all that. So Rangers are 3-6 on the road, 10-3 at home. But right now it's the Brewers. Brewers come in at 12-10. They're 3-6 on the road, 9-4 at home. So hopefully some home cooking, but you do have, the Brewers historically pitch well. And coming up tonight, it's Robbie Ray against, I think it's Quinn Priester is the starter for the Brewers. And, it's a long series. You're going to see pretty much everyone they have to offer. They've got some good, exciting young talent like Jackson Chourio. So it's not going to be easy. And you don't have any days off. And, the key point for me is that yesterday stings, but it happens over the course of 162. You just kind of have to accept that and move on and hopefully just get right back in the win column tonight and just forget about it. And that's the mindset that the players have. And as a fan, that's kind of the mindset that I try to have, because otherwise you can get too negative. You're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs, and you're going to have your games specifically like that where you feel like you should have won the game. And again, the Giants have done this a couple of times to other teams already this year. So I don't want to say, it all evens out, because it doesn't necessarily. But at the end of the day, the Giants are 14-8. I think any of us would have taken a 14-8 start. Their run differential is plus 30, which has an expected win-loss record of 14-8. So they've played right to their expected numbers. And with a .636 winning percentage, they would be in first place or tied for first place in all but the National League West and the National League East, where they'd be just a game behind the Mets in the NL East. So at the end of the day, all of us would have taken the start just objectively and You just got to turn the page. So coming up in just a minute, I want to get into something we haven't talked about much at all this year, which is the bench usage by the Giants and why I'm saying it is suboptimal. We'll get into what I mean in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. The all-in-one convenience is what I live for here. And so like instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals all in one place. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, here we go. We're going to get into a topic which I don't think has been discussed much. I've been thinking about it a lot, but then on the broadcast yesterday, they brought it up how Luis Matos came up and they said, you think things are different from years past? Like in the last 4 or 5 years, they said, really 5, 6 years, this would have been automatically Mike Yastrzemski. So it was Luis Matos hitting late in the game. I think the lead at that point was like 3-1 and runner on, 2 outs. And instead of using Mike Yastrzemski, they stick with Luis Matos. And he made an out on the first pitch, which I thought was fitting. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll be breaking down Game 1 of the series against the Brewers. No days off here. Quinn Priester, I don't know enough about him off the top of my head. He's a young pitcher, 24 years old. Career ERA of 5.74, but he's done well in a couple starts this year, although the expected numbers are much worse than the actual numbers. Doesn't strike a ton of guys out, has had a problem with home runs, so hopefully the Giants can get to him. Robbie Ray on the other side. So, the bench usage, it is notably different than in previous years. Like, Kruk and Kipe were absolutely correct. Like, this bench usage is extremely reminiscent of the way things were done under the previous regime, the Bobby Evans, Brian Sabian, that whole era. Like, that is how the Giants are using their bench now. They rarely pinch hit at all. Talk about platoons, like they're not doing that. I mean, there are certain guys who, when we say platoon, like they start against a lefty, like Luis Matos, Casey Schmidt, when he was on the roster. We'll discuss briefly. Casey Schmidt was placed on the injured list with a left oblique strain retroactive to the 18th of April. And David Villar was not just called up, he had to be added back to the 40-man because remember, he was out of options, and so they had to DFA him, but he went unclaimed and was then outrighted to AAA because you can do that if a guy goes unclaimed one time. Otherwise, the player has the right to elect free agency. So if Schmidt comes back, they can't just option VR. They would have to DFA him again, and if he goes unclaimed again, they can't just quote-unquote outright him. He could just elect free agency and choose to stick on with another team, which would make some sense for him. Anyway, certain guys, David Villar, he started yesterday against a left-handed pitcher, and so did Luis Matos. But the difference that you're seeing is that these guys are not getting pinch hit for in the game. When I think in certain situations you would see them get pinch hit for, but the Giants had their lineup. Sam Huff is another example. He's been starting pretty regularly when there's been a lefty on the mound. Patrick Bailey has really struggled with the bat. That's part of it. So it's like you're not if Patrick Bailey was hitting and defending like he does, maybe you'd see a little bit less of Sam Huff. But nonetheless, Sam Huff played the whole game. David Villar played the whole game. Luis Matos played the whole game. And these are guys who do not start unless there's a lefty on the mound. That's like been the way that they've used these guys. And it's like a set lineup. They're not pinch hitting for them in the game. Like, you didn't see Yaz hit for Matos. You didn't see Wade hit for VR, and you didn't see Bailey come in the game for Sam Huff. But that, again, I understand more because Bailey's not hitting. Nonetheless, I mean, maybe if you had subbed in Bailey late in the game, you would have got that strike 3 call to Mike Trout to start that 9th inning. So maybe Bob Melvin rethinks that a little bit, that it was a 3-run lead. So it wasn't like a 1-run lead. Maybe if it's a 1-run lead, they do go to Bailey just for that pitch framing element in a 1-run game in the 9th inning. But it was a 3-run game. But anyway, I have just found that this type of bench usage is suboptimal. And I was saying that years before the Farhan Zaidi regime came in and started using their bench in, I would say, the far extreme other end of this, where I think it became suboptimal in a way from that perspective as well, especially from a like fan enjoyment perspective. You want your everyday guys. You don't want to like the line change and all that, just everyday pinch hitters all the time. Like, it was kind of annoying to watch for fans, I think, if I'm representing what I believe generally fans were feeling correctly. And Gabe Kapler made comments about how he was asked after a bad season, like, about the platooning and all that, and he's like, well, I'm going to be honest with you, it's really fun. And so I think that rubbed people the wrong way. It rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm going to sit here and say I think the way they're doing it now is suboptimal. Why? Because of a couple of reasons. Number one, these guys like Matos, and it was Schmidt, but now VR, and Sam Huff, it's less relevant with a catcher because they're always going to play like this to give the regular catcher a day off because it's a grueling, physically demanding position. But specifically like VR and Matos, just they're not playing if they're not facing a lefty. And so it's really, players will tell you this up and down. They'll tell you, like, across the board, it's really hard to get in a rhythm offensively when you're barely playing and you're not getting consistent at bats. And so if this is the plan, and it very much appears to be the plan, these guys are just going to play in this sporadic manner. It's going to just depend on if it's a lefty starter. It's not that you're going to pinch hit in like pretty much every game, which is what we saw under the previous regime, is that, yeah, Yaz would have hit for Matos, but also vice versa. Matos would have hit for Yaz. Like, in a game, most games are going to be started by right-handed pitchers, but then late in the game, if there's a lefty in a big situation, you're going to that like Schmidt or Matos bench. And this bench, like, it wouldn't be exactly constructed like it is right now either. I think under the previous regime, like, Schmidt playing first is not something that I think would have been done by the previous regime, but it's just hard. Like, so Luis Matos has really fallen on hard times. And then all of a sudden, when you face a lefty, those guys they haven't played enough to be in a rhythm, like, to be able to produce. And so Matos went 0 for 5 in this game. VR did have a hit. It was in his last at bat. And then he scored. I mean, it was actually a big hit. Ended up being, I think he scored, maybe it wasn't his last at bat, but I think he scored on the Sam Huff home run, which was huge. But it's suboptimal for that reason, but also because I think, it was ironic when Kruk and Kite pointed out, you think things are different now than they were the last 4 or 5 years? When this would have automatically been Mike Yastrzemski. They're totally right. It would have automatically been Mike Yastrzemski I get it. It's one at bat. I can't just pretend like one at bat means anything. But on the first pitch, Matos made, I think it was his 5th out of the game. So he ended up 0 for 5. I don't know if it was his 4th at bat or his 5th at bat. But Yastrzemski has had a great season. And so maybe like they had a lot of success. They had a lot of pinch hit homers. They had a lot of pinch hit heroics. It worked a lot of the time. Of course, it's not going to work every time, but it added runs to their overall output of runs by pinch hitting. And so I do like also appreciate though that you want, like, if these guys aren't playing, like I said, unless there's a lefty starter, then I don't really want to take them out either. So you got to do it either way. You can't really do it where they're only starting like Matos against a lefty and then you're taking them out in the middle of the game, because then they're playing even less. But at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to have a productive bench if you're doing it this way, in my opinion. And then also, one of the other downsides is that you kind of wear down your starting players by doing it this way. And so it just kind of starts to creep in to me that this, like, the Giants bench in the years, let's just skip past the championship run and go like 2015 through 2018. Like, it was not good. And that was something when I was podcasting about the Giants since 2015, like I said, we were constantly talking about how they had like their impact players like Buster Posey and Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford and, you know, Pablo Sandoval to an extent. Well, no, he left after 2014. Whoever else it was at the time, it was mostly those three, if memory serves in the moment right here. But the rest of the roster was so weak, relatively speaking. And especially when you got towards the tail end, it was guys you didn't want playing. And you certainly didn't want pinch hitting in the game. And so I just hope that they don't fully go back to that and the bench starts to deteriorate in a way and become like, oh, we don't want these guys playing, but yet we're playing them when we're facing a lefty, and then we're not taking them out, even though our regular players are so much better because we need to give those guys rest, on and on and on. So it has like a ripple effect, I think, in a not so positive way. So you're not going to pinch hit for Elliot Ramos, Willy Adames, Jung-Hoo Lee, Matt Chapman. At this point, Wilmer Flores, because, well, I guess you could with Lamont Wade, but you'd rather do it with like David Villar with Lamont Wade. So I'd rather see some pinch hitting and just mixing and matching a little bit, but you still have your regular guys who you're not touching. And when they're starting, they're starting. So that's just my opinion, but I do think it's going to play out that way where everything I said, it's hard for these guys to get into a rhythm. And then, I don't know, it reminds me a little bit too much of times gone by. And we'll see. We'll see. I'm not saying act like the far extreme end under the previous regime. I'm saying somewhere in between. Please. Somewhere in between. So anyway, coming up in just a minute, we'll turn the page. I was concerned about starting pitching. Not really Logan Webb or Landen Roupp, but Landen Roupp had a great game. Logan Webb had an amazing game, and Justin Verlander had a great game. Giants starting pitching was awesome in this series against the Angels. We'll get into it in just a minute, and before we do, all right, here we go. We're going to get into the Giants starting pitching because it was something on Friday that I discussed as a concern, although admittedly, if you listen to the episode, I was not concerned about Logan Webb. I was not concerned about Landen Roupp. And I said, I think that those are your best two starters. And they did nothing to make me look bad when I said that, because Logan Webb, I mean, he was just great. And the Giants lost, 2-0. So that was a game you actually should have won too. You really could have swept the series if you look at the way it played out. They won, they lost 2-0. They couldn't do anything against Tyler Anderson. They won 3-2 in the middle game, and then they lose 5-4. So they had held the Angels to 1 run through 8 innings on Sunday, 2 runs, so that's 3 total runs, and then 2 more. So they had held the Angels to 5 runs into the 9th inning of the 3rd game in the whole series. So that's how good the Giants pitched until the bottom of the 9th in the finale. So very unfortunate, obviously. But Logan Webb went out there through 6 innings. His pitch count got up there to 105 in 6 innings for the simple fact that he had 12 strikeouts. 12 strikeouts, no walks, 1 earned run, 4 hits allowed. So he was amazing. And on the season, what jumps off the page is just the strikeout numbers. He struck out almost a third of the batters he's faced now in 5 starts. And his ERA is 2.40. The expected ERA is 2.72. The fielding independent pitching is 1.63. So I don't know. I'm not going to say he's going to win the Cy Young, but I will remind you that one of my 3 bold takes was that Logan Webb will win the Cy Young Award this year. His strikeout rate, 32.8% this year. Career strikeout rate, 22.4. So he's up like 10 percentage points, which is kind of amazing. And his walk rate is still very low, 6%, right in line with his career average, and still just a ground ball machine. So wasted. They've done that a couple times where they wasted a great start. That's not really the point, though, that I want to make. I'm trying to make the point that their starting pitching was just great in this series. So in the second game, it was like a Landen Roupp coming out party, and he basically was the only blemish was that Mike Trout got him twice on homers. But otherwise, Roupp went 7 innings, struck out 9, walked 1, and allowed just the 2 earned runs. 2 solo homers by Mike Trout. 5 hits allowed, so just 3 hits outside of those 2 homers. So, you tip your hat to Mike Trout. Mike Trout is really good. And on the season now, Landen Roupp, to me, again, I think their second best starter. The ERA is 4.09, but I look past that. The expected ERA, 2.91. This is based on like the quality of contact, StatCast kind of analytics stuff, and also strikeout rate, walk rate, fielding independent pitching, which is based on strikeout rate, walk rate, and then your home run to fly ball ratio, and it puts it at a league average rate as opposed to whatever it is in reality, because it takes a long time to stabilize. So it just says, let's forget waiting on that to stabilize and just make it average. And so he's allowed a few more home runs than you would expect, I guess. And so, I don't know. I mean, the strikeout rate is 31.2%. This is a very good number. Walk rate very much under control at 8.6%. There's just nothing. I think the ERA at 4.09 is deceptively high, and you're looking at a guy who's pitched significantly better than that, and we saw it. I mean, that curveball can just be basically unhittable, and he's throwing it 40% of the time. He's thrown his sinker 40% of the time. So it's 80% sinkers and curveballs, and then the rest changeups and cutters, but it's sinker and curveball equally. So that's, it's just such a good pitch for him that he uses it a lot. And he had good command. I mean, the sinker was really moving. It was just a great start for Landen Roupp, who, one of the things I said coming into the year on like the NL West preview show was like, y'all are going to know the name Landen Roupp. I also said or Hayden Birdsong, and I also mentioned Carson Whisenhunt by the end of this year. And I think that is just a fact. If you look at like fantasy baseball leagues, you'll see that Landen Roupp is like now owned in like most leagues, like 90-something percent. I play like some crazy advanced fantasy league, and the fact that when you get guys starting to be owned over 90%, like people are understanding this guy is legit. And Hayden Birdsong is also in that category, just by the way. But then Justin Verlander, this is where I feel really bad. He had a great start, very much deserving of a win. And I don't really care about pitcher wins, except maybe this might be the only guy I care about pitcher wins for, because he is chasing 300 for his career. He's like 30-something, 38 or something away. And he was in line for the win. If Ryan Walker could have just sealed the deal there, but he could not. Verlander went 6, did allow a solo homer. That was the only run he allowed. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, 2 hits. So by far the best start that Verlander has made with the Giants. And, it's not like oh, he's one of these older pitchers who's having to work with diminished stuff. He's throwing like 97 at times. So this guy is 42 years old out here. And if you look at the quality of the stuff by this Stuff Plus metric that's featured on Fangraphs, every single pitch that he throws has graded as pretty significantly above average. And so for him, I don't know what exactly the issue has been. Like, he's walked more guys than you're used to. His 10% walk rate right now would be the highest of his career. In his career, it's just 6.9%. His strikeout rate is not, it's a little below average at 20.9%. But he's got a 5.47 ERA, but the expected ERA is 4.06, so about a run and a half lower. So I don't know. I feel bad for him, and really for Ryan Walker too, because I'm sure Ryan Walker feels horrible for the same reason, for not getting Verlander that win. But again, this is a team. I care about the Giants much less than I care about Justin Verlander's personal accolades. Yeah, he's 38 away from 300, and so when you have one in the bag like that, to blow it, it hurts. It hurts that the Giants had it in the bag and they blew it, but it also hurts for Verlander, and I'm sure Ryan Walker feels horrible. But Verlander has been around the game long enough to understand that this happens, and it happened, and you got to turn the page, because here come the Brewers, and they're a good team. So that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I cannot wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.